our guest speaker for the evening, Major General Peter J. Gravett.
Gravett.
Gravett, okay, U.S. Army retired. A little bit about him. From his humble beginning as one of 12 born to a blue-collar working-class family, from the public housing projects and rising to the rank of Major General in the United States Army, Peter J. Gravett exemplifies the American dream, where a person can achieve whatever they want as long as they're willing to work hard for it. Throughout his life, Peter has dedicated himself to the service of others, including his God, his family, and his career. With that said, sir, go right ahead and jump on in.
Well, good evening, and thank you for having me. And I appreciate the invitation by the Satellite Rotary Club of Military and Family Support. I'm going to talk a little bit about my career, about my family background, and some of the things that I've done. And I hope that at the end, I'll be able to share information about a book that I have, that I've written. And most of this is contained in the book, and then it's on the website. It's www.petergravett.com. Anyway, I like to think that I'm from a military family. My father served in World War II, and 8 of my brothers served in the Army. I served alongside one of my brothers in the Army, and my 2 sisters got into the act also. One married a soldier and one married a Marine. So we have a Marine in the family. My parents hail from the South, Little Rock, Arkansas, and that's where they grew up, and that's where they started their family. And then after having 8 children in Arkansas, they moved to Southern California, primarily the San Pedro area, where my father was promptly drafted into the Army Air Corps, actually. And he had 8 children at the time. And so my mother was left at home with 8 children, the oldest being 10-year-old. And I could talk about that in my autobiography. And by the way, the book that I just showed you, it was written not for commercial value. I had done so many things over a 40-year span in police work, LAPD, military, government, business, and on the go all the time, here, there, around the world. When I retired, one of my sisters suggested that I put something down on paper to let the family know what I had done all those years when I missed all those family gatherings. So I started writing some things with the intent of just sharing it with my family. And that was the sole intent. And so it took me a couple of years to put everything together. And then I did that. And then she suggested then that why don't I have it published. So my wife Blanche and I published the book ourselves, and then put it on the internet. But again, the intent was not to make it commercial. And any proceeds from the book are all donated to the Boys and Girls Club of Los Angeles Harbor, which I serve on the board. Anyway, after high school, I joined the Army National Guard. And the Armory was right next door to my high school, so I was by there quite a bit as a boy in junior high and high school. And so when I graduated, I joined the National Guard, went out to the Army for basic training, advanced training, and did my tour of duty in the Army, returned home, and joined the National Guard to continue my military service. Same time, I joined the LA Police Department, and I served in the LAPD for over 20 years. And at the same time served in the Army National Guard and promoted through the enlisted ranks initially in the National Guard, and then finally was commissioned a 2nd lieutenant. At the same time, I was receiving some promotions in the police department, kind of balance the two together. And any reservist of any service knows the difficulty and the challenges of serving both in the military reserve and also a full-time civilian career. It's challenging, but everybody does it. Those that serve do it, and it's a pleasure doing it. You do it out of patriotism. And I enjoyed my military career. I enjoyed my police career, And I had some enjoyable times in the police department, some good, some not so good, as any policeman will tell you. And in the military, I enjoyed all that. And I enjoyed some of those things also. Along the way, when I went to OCS and was commissioned, I rose through the ranks. And by the time I was ready to retire from the police department, I had reached the rank of lieutenant colonel. And then in 1984, I served on the Olympic military task force with 84 Olympics as a military officer. And on the task force, we had military personnel from all 5 services throughout Southern California in various capacities, most of them out of sight in case they were needed. But in any event, when the closing day of the Olympics was the day that I retired from the police department and had the opportunity to stay on active duty with the Army. And so I did so for another 20 years. So my military career actually spanned 40 years, 20 as a National Guardsman, part-time soldier, and 20 full-time. And then in my second half of my military career, I served in throughout the US and in some foreign countries, Japan, South Korea, Honduras, and also throughout Europe. I served 3 tours of duty in the Ukraine, short tours of duty in Ukraine as a NATO military representative in the Partnership for Peace program. And what that was, the state of California had partnered with the Ukraine military for training and operations. And so we had a number of soldiers there training the Ukrainian army in the US military form of military operations and breaking them down away from the old Soviet form which they had been under before. So that was a very enjoyable time for me because I got a chance to meet a lot of great people in that country and form some bonds and relationships that I maintained over the years. As after I retired from the military, I had been doing a lot of work with veterans throughout the state. And I got a call from the governor's office and the governor was interested in interviewing me for a position in his cabinet. And I had never applied for a position with Governor Brown, Jerry Brown, in his 3rd term, which is I guess 8 years between his 2nd term and his 3rd term. And I had never met him and never campaigned for him and never voted for him and never provided any funds for his campaign. I don't know how he found me, but somehow he did. And as a matter of fact, I wasn't even a member of his party, but I won't go into that. But he wanted to meet with my wife and I. So my wife and I met him in an office in West Los Angeles where he was there with his wife and Gus. And we had a nice conversation. And I had learned that he was interested in appointing me as his Secretary of Veterans Affairs. So I had about 24 hours to study up on the agency and the department, which I hadn't done before. I knew something about it, but I pulled up the annual report, some budget projections and expenditures and staff and personnel and that kind of thing. So I'd be able to answer any questions that he might have. And so we sat there and talked for a while and for about 30 minutes. And in 30 minutes, he didn't ask me any questions about veterans or the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. And he said goodbye, and we left and went home. On the way home, I told my wife, well, I don't know what that was all about because, you know, I don't know why he interviewed me. There was nothing there. And walked in the door at home and the telephone was ringing and it was his appointment secretary. And she informed me that the governor would know if I would accept a position as Secretary of Veterans Affairs. And I said, yes. And she said, you start tomorrow morning. And I did. The next morning, there was a veterans conference scheduled in Los Angeles, which I didn't know about ahead of time. And he wanted me to be there to represent him and introduce myself as his new Secretary of Veterans Affairs. And so I did. So that was the start of my tenure in his 2nd term as Secretary of Veterans Affairs for the state of California. And then my wife, being a veteran herself, retired Army colonel. We served together, her as a volunteer. And for the next 4 years, we traveled the state and interfaced with a lot of veterans in California, throughout the state. California, then and now, has more veterans than any other state in the nation. And as a matter of fact, at the time that I started serving, 1 in about every 10 veterans in the nation were in California. Some were Californians, I should say most were Californians. Others had migrated to California after they had left the military service. I guess they came for the California umbrella. In any event, we had an opportunity to meet some great veterans and do some things and work with the federal VA. The California Department of Veteran Affairs, like every state, is partnered with the federal VA. I like to say that the federal VA makes the veterans, but they belong to the various states. And so we work hand in hand. As the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, had the opportunity to do some interesting things in the different parts of the state. And I want to read out of my book, just to take me about a minute or two, a passage about an event that I had as Secretary of Veterans Affairs. If you bear with me here. It was learned that the fastest growing segment of veterans in the state were women veterans, as more positions in the military were being open to women, and the overall percentage of women serving in the services collectively increased exponentially. Women were also being allowed to serve in direct combat roles. For the most part, women tended to serve the service. Women tended to leave the service after serving only 1 enlistment period, therefore increasing the overall numbers of women veterans in the state. To address the growing numbers of women veterans, we appointed a Women's Veterans Deputy Secretary, whose primary focus was to address those issues which directly affected women in addition to those which all veterans face. Previously, women veterans were handled as an additional duty by a male deputy secretary. The purpose was to have a primary point of contact to not only bring together women veterans, but also to bring together government, nonprofit, and private service providers to address these women veteran issues. For example, we learned that in some cases, women veterans, especially those unemployed or underemployed, were lacking in proper attire required for a job interview. With Women's Deputy Secretary Lindsay Senn in the lead, herself a veteran of the U.S. Navy, the need for donation of various women's attire was communicated to churches, civic groups, women colleges, women college professors, women state employees, and this resulted in the planning and scheduling a clothing donation and distribution drive during the annual women's conference, Women's Veterans Conference. The event was held at a major hotel in downtown Sacramento, which donated the space for staging at no cost. The request was for women to donate their personal items which had been purchased but had never been worn and were hanging in their closets. As Lindsay Senn said, clothes that have been gently worn. These specific requests were for business dresses, clothing, and accessories. The specific request was for business clothing and accessories. The result was that several thousand items of women's dresses, suits, skirts, blouses, coats, sweaters, scarves, handbags, shoes, hats, pieces of costume jewelry, and other clothing items suitable for job interview were collected, all brand new, all not used. Additionally, upon learning of the purpose of the event, several department stores donated in a sundry of personal items of clothing for the women in their inventory. Deputy Secretary Lindsay Senn had recruited an army of women volunteers from the above groups to assist. The hotel mezzanine space was cordoned off into fitting rooms with mirrors, and fashion experts had donated their time free of charge to assist the women. Everything was provided free of charge. Several hundred women veterans attended and were gifted with over 3,000 outfits. So that was just one event that I enjoyed having to do with veterans as Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Another one, which I won't read from, but I'll just tell you about it briefly, was the women in prison. We had the opportunity to stand up and organize the first American Legion VIP post. VIP stands for Veterans in Prison. This is at the Corona Women's Prison in California, in Southern California. A number of prisoners and inmates at that facility were veterans, and they had been receiving veteran benefits before they were incarcerated. We decided to form a American Legion post at the facility, and we did. We had the full support of the governor and the California director of prisons. We had an activation ceremony. We had identified about 30 women in that facility who had been veterans. We provided them American Legion caps. We provided them white gloves for the ceremony. We provided them a large American flag to be hoisted on the interior flagpole inside the facility. At the activation ceremony, the women stood in formation, just as they had been taught to do in the various services that they had served in. And the flag went up, they saluted the flag, and they were looked on and watched by all the other non-veteran women who applauded them. And today, that American Legion post, American Legion VIP post #1, is still in existence in Corona. That's just another event that some of the nice things that you get from serving veterans. And I can go on and on about some other things that we did, but it was an opportunity to do some great things. And lastly, my wife and I was at a veterans conference in another part of California, attending the conference, and I was approached by one of the organizers and told me that he had learned that a former Marine, whose wife was pregnant, and they had been evicted from their facility, had no place to stay. They had been staying at a third grade hotel, a motel, and were about to be evicted the next day, and he needed a place to stay. Could we arrange something quickly? And I said, well, that's kind of very difficult. I said, where is he now? And he told me. I said, I'll tell you what, have him call this number, which is my home, and ask for Blanche. Blanche is my wife. I telephoned Blanche, told her to expect a call from a Marine and his wife. And the Marine called my wife, Blanche. They linked up. The Marine and his family drove to my house. They stayed in my house for 2 weeks. And I was never there because I was in another part of the state. And then finally his benefits came in. He and his wife were able to move out and get their own place. And the good news about the whole thing is that 2 months later, my wife Blanche was invited to attend the baby shower for the Marine's wife. So, and I can go on and on about great things that people in California have done to assist veterans. But California is a great place to serve in the military, and a great place for veterans. And we do our best to help veterans. At this point, Raymond, would you have any questions for me?
Well, I think I'll open it up to Dom and his group first to see if they've got any questions, because everybody knows I've always got questions.
Well, there you are, Raymond, a few questions. But either way, no, so that was actually fantastic. I absolutely love that. We were trying to learn about the book beforehand. Now the reader, that would have been fun to read before we spoke. Now that I know it, though, all the difference. With that said, if you have any questions from the audience, leave me in. All right, well, I think it was incredibly well explained. That's what it comes down to is, I feel like I can delve deeper, but, I think you're doing a fantastic job. And Lang goes, no, exactly. Really don't like how the microphone is. I want to look at Raymond when he's smiling at me. But yeah, no, it's, fantastic job, sir, on letting us know what's going on. With that said, Raymond, go ahead, shoot.
Yeah, Peter, okay, this club was formed up because of food insecurity among not only, there's 22,000 active duty families that receive SNAP, 213,000 National Guard reservists that receive SNAP, and 1.2 million veterans who receive federal food assistance. So there's this food insecurity, and there's these food pantries on military bases. And last year, we did a drive where we provided the Pelican Pantry at 29 Palms with 5 tons of food, which lasted roughly 5 months for those families. And so they were formed up here, this group, to permanently create a supply line out to 29 Palms initially, and then hopefully to expand to other military bases within California. Did you ever at the governor's office address issues of food insecurity or have that come across your desk?
Actually, no. And it's really unfortunate that we have to provide food to military families and veterans in the state, as wealthy as this state is. And of course, the benefits that our younger military personnel and younger veterans who haven't reached salary maturity yet have a challenge with today. But no, the food pantries throughout the state, and there are a number of them, and the distribution centers, a number of them, provide food to both veterans and non-veterans. And the fact that this organization has targeted, the military in Southern California and providing food distribution is a great thing.
So the other thing that I had a question on was that transition from enlisted to officer. How did that happen for you, and what was it like?
Well, first of all, I was an enlisted soldier for about 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so I had reached the enlisted rank of Sergeant First Class E7. And then I applied for, was selected to attend Officer Candidate School. So I went off to Officer Candidate School several months, and at the end of my training, I was commissioned as Second Lieutenant. And then I was assigned to a platoon as platoon leader. And then over the next several years, I went through the ranks of Second Lieutenant, from platoon to First Lieutenant as a company executive officer, then a company commander. I commanded 2 different companies, actually. And then major 4 years later, and then as a staff officer, and then lieutenant colonel. I commanded an armor battalion, tank battalion, and also commanded a military police battalion. And so, but this is over a period of years. And then finally, I was promoted to full colonel, and I served as a brigade, a tank brigade commander, and also a division chief of staff. So all that accumulated being selected by the Congress to be a brigadier general. I went through the process, and once you are selected for general officer, it's a tedious process that they go through before you're actually promoted. It takes over a year once you're selected, and in that year they do a lot of background checks and some other things that had not been done before. And promoted to brigadier general as assistant division commander. And then later in my military career, I had the fortunate opportunity to command a mechanized infantry division, 18,223 soldiers and 57,000 family members.
So my last question for you, and then if there's any other questions from the group there, you've had this fabulous, fantastic, full life. If your father was here with you right now, what would he be the most proud of?
Oh, he'd be proud that I was a soldier. Just that I was a soldier. Rank would not matter to him. He didn't want to be drafted because he had a large family. He had a wife and 8 children, and I'm told I don't know anything about that. I was a toddler at the time, just a little baby or whatever it was, and I talked to him later on. He didn't want to go because he didn't want to leave his family destitute. But he went and served. And so while he was gone, my mother made do. and with eight kids, and she had an allotment of about $20 a month, I think it was, or something like that. And she told me that her young sons, ages 7, 8, 9, 10, had ran errands for people in the neighborhood to collect nickels and dimes, to wash windows, cut lawns, wash cars, and make money for the family. And so for the 18 months that my father was in the Army until he returned after World War II, they made do that way. So he went in the Army, living a wife with no money, no food, no telephone, no car, no job, but a lot of heart.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation. I know, Dom, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you again.
I think, if Daryl's happy, I'll see.
Yeah, not a question, just a comment. Thoroughly enjoyed the presentation, but my grandfather was, after his retirement, was appointed to a position in the state that he lived in. He was a retired accountant. He was appointed as the commissioner of the state lottery. And his interview went very similar to yours. And his response to the governor-elect at the time was, I don't know a damn thing about running a lottery. And the next day he was appointed. So I don't think that's too, I don't think your experience is too out of the normal realm.
Well, you never know. You just have to be prepared. But anyway, again, my book is From East Garrison to the Ranch House. And the title is described in the first couple of chapters. East Garrison is in Camp Roberts, California, a military base on the Central Coast. And on the base, there's a ranch house. And the ranch house is an old hacienda. And that's where the commanding general resides. And so the book, From East Garrison to the Ranch House, covers about 150 years of that base, but also it covers my entire military career. Again, that's www.petergravett.com. And East Garrison was the east side of the post, and that's where the colored soldiers were stationed in World War II. And the hacienda is on the west side of the post, and that's where the white soldiers were in World War II. And so I talk about how those two came together after so many years, and how, in addition to being the first African-American National Guard Division commander in the United States, I was also the very first African-American to ever reside in the ranch house. And the ranch house was 150 years old. Of course, it's been remodeled about a dozen times. And so I give a long history about the ranch house. I think it's enjoyable reading for both the military and non-military, and it's in large print. So if you wear glasses like I do, you won't have any problem reading it.
Well, fantastic. Thank you, General. We appreciate that very much. And we're so happy to have you here and have history, and then know about a little bit more history of everything that's going on between the Army, the Army National Guard, and the state of California as a whole. And I'm happy that it made the General, as we said, happy. So thank you. I appreciate that quite a bit.
Thank you.
Of course. So then with that said, is there any more questions? Raymond, are we good?
Everybody a thumbs up.
All right, thumbs up it is. Then we'll slide into the next few things from there. All right, we're going to go into our Action 360 then. We're looking at turning around the tickets in, and we only have 31 days left for our sales. All right, and then we're going to bring up the USMC dinner again, Marine Corps birthday, which is sold out. We want to tell everybody again, and if went that well, that we're going to be able to keep going with them. As I'm trying to read at the same time, which is doing great. Next year we'll be in charge of it. That makes the most sense. But this year it's sold out, and it's actually oversold, which is fantastic, and can't wait for it. And then our 29th Palms Resupply Committee, where I think Isabel would love to come up here and talk about.
like, I'm not in charge.
Yes, now let's need to be in charge. We get to pass things out. Any questions? So right there. Yeah, no, I'm just asking if you want.
We do have press release that went out. I already posted on, there's a Facebook page, all of the committee meetings are on there. We have a committee meeting, I believe, on the 15th, which is a Tuesday. And then after the Marine Corps fall is when we're actually gonna have. But if you, it should have been emailed out to all of us. If you want to print them out. Like,
Lost, we're losing sound there.
Moment, we'll be really going into detail for the emails that we've gotten after the report call on it. Because the first meeting is on the 5th. Did you have anything to add, Raymond?
Not about the 29 Pumps Committee. Everything's running well. I'd just like to talk briefly about the dinner if I could.
I guess we'll go right ahead.
We'll allow it.
Thank you very much. So, hey, so number one is the dinner is to support Making Spirits Bright, which provides Christmas gifts to enlisted families at 29 Palms and Camp Pendleton. And we are on target to present them with a check for $5,000 and also for a check for $1,000 for the ASYMCA out at 29 Palms. But I wanted to let you know that your chair there, Dominic, will be presenting to the guest speaker, who is Major Dan Sheehan, USMC retired, third generation naval aviator, a couple of tours on as a Cobra gunship pilot in Iraq. And you're going to be presenting a beautiful certificate from the County of Los Angeles commemorating the birthday of the Marine Corps and his job as our speaker. And then the lodge has this year, which will also present to the speaker, this fabulous challenge coin. And you can see the front part of it is a Masonic symbol, but on the reverse are, let me get in front of the camera, the emblems from the branches of the military service. So that challenge coin was presented by the lodge. And this 2-hour dinner is going to be braised short ribs. I know Glenn is there in the room, hopefully somewhere. He is our cook, and it is oversold. Over, I think about 110 people will be present. And so we're very excited about this dinner. And then we're going to go full blast on your project to do the food drive. Anybody have any questions about the dinner? Dom, be there, be square, because you're presenting the certificate.
Well, I don't have a choice. I apparently already bought the tickets, so I don't have a choice. The wife and I will be there, and I'll be in there with heels on. So I'm excited about it. I cannot wait. I don't understand why we don't have coin hanging up in the brewery. That would make sense, but here nor there. I mean, I'm saying we get a coin, that's a little weird, but all right. No, I look forward to getting out another certificate for another person to another thing. That sounds fantastic.
Do you want to mention the pickup that you and Wallace did?
I definitely will. With that said, no, I do actually. I'm really excited. I think a couple of my buddies are actually coming to this dinner, and they have expressed a lot of excitement about my age. A couple of jarheads. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm very excited. So this will be a little different.
My understanding is that the after party is actually at the brewery. That's the rumor I've heard. So I don't know what your Marines got planned.
I love the idea. Unfortunately, I do have staff here. So yes, no, the last time I went to one of these, I think I was 19 between the wars, and had a lot of fun, but you know, well, it was actually my girlfriend at the time, now wife. We just celebrated 14 years together, married yesterday. Yeah, no, I think that's how long it's been since I've been to one of these, which has been a great time, but might be a little bit different this time. But yeah, no, we'll go find somewhere. Two other things you said, but unfortunately there's a recording going on. With our food drive committee, that's fantastic. So then we spoke, let's just dive right into the next in our calendar. we do have our November 15th food drive committee meeting from 6 to 7 via Zoom, which Bella already touched on. All right, but then our next meeting after that is literally the next day. And what we're looking at there is we're going to have our speaker, which is Captain Ed Turner, United States Navy, retired. He's with the National POW/MIA Memorial and Museum. I don't know how familiar everyone with the house is when it comes to being a captain in the Navy. The ranks are a little different. Best way I can explain it is this. Think of as a captain in the Navy is like a colonel in the Army, the Marine Corps, and that nature. So you're still used to captain being a different rank, and there's so many other branches, but we're gonna have another fantastic speaker coming in on the 16th. Is what I'm trying to get out essentially. All right, and then December 3rd on the calendar, we're looking for volunteer opportunities for the San Dimas Holiday Extravaganza. I think we're all familiar with it at this point. Yes, and also usually lightly, what I want to use, not rains, but it lightly drizzles, usually at the end of this event, which is always fantastic. Am I wrong?
No, you're not.
No, it always does. I've never worked one with my wife without that being the case. What we're looking for is the setup, the work booth, and the cleanup itself. So whatever we can have with people on and in-house, we can always try to make that all work out. Let's not forget that the last day of the routing cells is the same amount as the extravaganza itself. So December 3rd is what we're looking at here. With that said, all right, I do have to do a four-way test. I happen to have a man who has a card right in front of him right now. This is my applause.
All right, I did bring a card just in case there was any kind of stage fright or anything like that. I've done this, I don't know, Raymond, what would you say, 50, 100 times, something like that? Not sure, but yeah, so the four-way test is, it's sort of a morality ethical code that Rotarians came up with, and it's of everything we think, say, and do. And it is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I like to think of this as sort of a four-way stop, because I can think of a lot of examples of something that's the truth that is not necessarily beneficial and won't build goodwill. I can think of things that are beneficial to all concerned, but are not necessarily the truth. But if you can navigate all four of these points in the four-way test, you can rest assured that what you're doing is ethical and moral, and you're gonna kind of be on a clear path. So that's the four-way test, and it's very easy to not take action on something that doesn't meet these four tests. It's slightly more difficult to not say something that doesn't navigate all four of these, but it can be very difficult to not think something that doesn't meet all four of these tests. So that's why it is everything we think, say, and do. Pass all four of these tests, then you know you're on the right track. And that's today's four-way test.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. All right, our closing remarks from Bella, I believe is how it works.
No.
Okay, something that was not mentioned, Mike and I had the luxury of picking up a few things from Kittle Hill, which I don't know where Raymond. Yes, no, that's absolutely. I'm not sure where Raymond met this lovely lady. It was a Legion, though. I don't know how to say her name. I tried to say it to her, and she definitely was like, "That is definitely wrong," but never corrected me, which is very sweet. But she was wonderful. She herself being in the military, and then through the Legion had collect X amount of things, mostly I guess you could say infant We've been doing quite a bit of diapers, wipes, yeah, clothes, car seat or two. And then all the other things. She actually brought two other people that came in and brought some more stuff. So thanks to Mike and his crop, we were able to get everything back from Shingle Hill. So that was the other day, which was absolutely wonderful. Yeah, so that was great. And something to think about for the future is exactly that is we know that there are other legions or VFWs, anything of that nature that are doing of that nature. We kind of for us. I know we're leading up to our big time here in March, but if we can kind of start collecting right now, as you know, that space would be a little bit difficult. Things like Mike did throw everything in the trash cans, and we are able to still have them in his garage, but
They're actually in my office because my wife keeps them having.
and there you are, they're in his office. So the idea as a whole is that we're able to start collecting things now, which is fantastic because we do know from previous experiences how things worked out with the whole drop off of other people doing their fundraising, bringing it in, so on and so forth. So now I should have to bring up though, is I did speak with my partner about our place here at High Point, and the idea that depending on when we want to actually start doing it, it's going to be the worst month by any means, is like dropping off food and or products such as diapers and wipes and whatnot, and then knocking off beer prices for them. And that's something that with everyone that's on currently, we could possibly think about doing. I know we drop boxes and everything of that nature already, but we can start thinking about it. That's something we would like to do here so that we can collect even more for 2/9. So with that said, that's basically all my closing remarks for everything that's going on. With that said, I'm sure Raymond has something to wrap us up with. Well, fantastic. Look at that. That's a little bit interesting for us. I will say, well, you know, actually, my final closing remark, I do think it's a little interesting that we don't seem to have for the more families, more food from the Fed, but that's here or there. Thanks to our guest speaker this evening, the general himself. It does seem like it, with everything else, it doesn't seem like it quite makes as much sense that we don't have our, it doesn't start tilting on a scale, but either way, wonderful. With that said, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to our next meeting, which I already said, which is going to be on the 15th, the Food Drive Committee.
Yes.
And I look forward to hearing from you guys then. Well, actually, guys, no, take that back. I look forward to the 10th. That's going to be fantastic. Did you need me to show up earlier there, Raven? Give me the rundown. No? Okay, fantastic. So I just get the free salad. I love that. I love giving speeches like that, especially in the soup. I feel very fancy. As long as I get through the cocktail. But that's it.
Now, Dom, I sent you the script and I wrote the words out for you. Like, and I use small words because I know you're a Marine, so you should be just fine with this.
Oh, I do. I know, as you know, as a coast team, they would never let me in there. I'm not even allowed. I'm allowed there. I'm allowed in the Air Force. I know they can pay more if they have to stay in a Marine Corps base if you're in the Air Force and or a coast team, which I understand. We're a little bit more rugged, a little more rough, but say la vie, as they say. You know, it's a big word for me right there. So I think that might be Arabic, but I'm not sure. With that said, I'm so thankful to have you guys here tonight. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
Good night, buddy.